Rain fell in torrents outside the window, and the wind howled through the cracks in Olivia's old apartment, making her feel as if she were living in a world full of gloom and despair. The dim light from the small, feeble desk lamp shone on the white paper in her hand, a contract that had been pre-written. The printed words on it were like curses, cold characters invading her mind, as if trying to drag her down from the brink on which she had just stood firm. Olivia Carter, a young woman with big dreams, had gradually lost her ability to trust herself. The busy days working in journalism were not enough to fill the heavy burden of financial worries. Mounting debts, her mother's serious illness, and every choice seemed to lead her to a dark crossroads. With few options left, Olivia realized that she had reached a point of no return. To save her family, she had to sacrifice. But the price she had to pay was not just money or time, it was her soul. When she received an offer from Lucas Sterling, a wealthy and mysterious billionaire, she could not have imagined that a marriage would be the only thing that could help her escape this impasse. Yet, at the same time, she was fully aware that this was not the kind of marriage of love that she had once dreamed of. It was merely a transaction, an agreement between two strangers, where she would trade her freedom and her dreams in exchange for financial security. The image of her mother, ill and in need of care, made it impossible for her to refuse. However, every time she looked at that contract, an inexplicable fear rose within her. Lucas was an unpredictable man. He possessed a world of his own that Olivia had never dared to explore. She had heard about him, that he was not only rich, but also powerful, that his connections and decisions could change the entire face of an industry. But Olivia knew that in Lucas's world, there was no room for the weak. Becoming his wife was an irrevocable bond. Olivia looked at her signature on the white paper, but something made her hesitate. She wondered if she was walking into a trap from which she could not escape, whether this marriage would be the beginning of a new life, or a life trapped in a world she could not control. She thought of her mother, lying in a hospital bed, enduring pain that she could do nothing to alleviate. She thought of the children in her old neighborhood, of the friends who had abandoned her because she could not pay her debts. And then she thought of herself. How could a woman like her hope for a better future when everything was against her? But then, in those moments, a cold truth gradually emerged. Olivia realized that everything she was facing was the result of difficult decisions, with no perfect choice. If she refused this offer, her mother would never have enough money for treatment. The debts would follow her for the rest of her life. And in the end, she would lose everything. Life would become an endless series of days filled with worry and regret. She sighed, feeling as if her heart were being squeezed tight. How could she make this decision? How could she choose a life full of secrets and unknowns without giving up everything she once believed in? She looked at Lucas's signature, feeling ambiguity within her. Did Lucas truly want this marriage out of love, or merely because she was a tool in his hands? She did not know, but she could no longer continue living in this world without an escape. Do I have no other choice? Olivia wondered, as her hand gently held the pen. The conflict between despair and skepticism made her pause. But finally, after a few quiet moments, she decided to sign. It was not an easy choice. And in that moment, Olivia clearly realized that she was stepping into a completely new life. A strange, mysterious, and dangerous world. Yet sometimes, when standing before a murky future, one can only move forward, even though the destination is unknown. She signed, and a part of her changed forever. Olivia stood before the mirror in the luxurious bedroom of Lucas's mansion. The warm light from the crystal chandelier shone into the mirror, reflecting her image in a sophisticated black evening gown that fit perfectly, hugging her body. The shiny silver high heels along with the sparkling diamond necklace enhanced the cold, seductive beauty that she had never imagined she would ever display. Today was an important party, where Olivia had to play the role of the perfect wife that Lucas desired. Her heart pounded, not out of fear, but because of the conflict within her. She was not a woman from this world of luxury. The dazzling evening gowns, the parties with brilliant golden lights, and the exquisite dishes like works of art. Everything was alien, suffocating, and hard to accept to Olivia. However, when she thought of the reason she was here, to save her family, to escape from debt, she felt relieved. This was the only path she could take. When Olivia stepped out of the room, Lucas was already waiting beside the sleek black Rolls Royce. He wore an elegant black tuxedo with a white shirt and a perfect black tie. His face showed no trace of strangeness, his appearance as flawless as ever, but his eyes seemed distant, full of thought. Even so, when he saw Olivia, Lucas gave a gentle smile. Not overly warm, but enough to make her feel somewhat reassured. "You look wonderful," Lucas said, his voice warm yet with something cold, as if he could not fully express his emotions. Olivia merely smiled in response, saying nothing more. She stepped into the car, where the chauffeur was already waiting, and the heavy feeling of the evening began to take over her mind. With each passing minute, she felt herself drifting further away from the old world she once knew, stepping deeper into a world in which she did not know if she could endure for long. The party was held at another one of Lucas's mansions, where the rich, powerful, and famous of high society gathered. Soft music played, murmured conversations filled the air, and the gleaming golden lights accentuated the opulence and power of the guests. Olivia felt like a stranger among the crowd, the only one unable to blend into this atmosphere of power and grandeur. She was the wife by contract, not a true part of this world. However, Olivia also understood that this was the moment when she had to play her part. She smiled as she greeted the important people, shaking hands politely with the guests, even engaging in conversation with a few to appear friendly and approachable. Every eye was fixed on her, and she felt like a puppet in the game that Lucas had created. "Olivia, have you met John and Sarah yet?" Lucas asked gently, pulling her away from the crowd to introduce her to a wealthy couple he knew well. Olivia only smiled softly, trying to appear integrated, even though she felt no comfort at all inside. She shook their hands and joined the conversation, trying to maintain a confident demeanor, even though deep inside she felt as if she were being pushed into a gilded cage. She heard about business projects, risky investments, luxury items that were completely out of reach for her. All of these things highlighted the stark differences between Olivia's life and that of those around her. However, what made Olivia feel most uncomfortable were the sharp eyes of the guests around her. They did not look at her in a friendly manner, but as if they were evaluating her from every angle. There were cold, piercing looks and curious stares, as if they were trying to uncover something hidden behind her flawless exterior. Throughout the party, Olivia felt the scrutiny, as if an invisible pressure was weighing heavily on her shoulders. And she knew that everyone was curious about Lucas Sterling's mysterious wife, the woman who had never appeared in public before and was now silently claiming her place in this world of luxury. At the height of the party, Olivia suddenly overheard a whispered conversation between two women in a corner of the room. They did not notice Olivia as she walked by, but what they said made her stop and eavesdrop. "He's not the man you think he is," one of them whispered, her voice filled with suspicion. "Lucas Sterling is not only a wealthy man, he has secret connections that no one knows about. I've heard that he is involved in shady dealings, in unsavory transactions. I heard he doesn't just run financial companies, he also has ties to underground organizations." A shiver ran down Olivia's spine. Those words seemed to shatter the sweet facade she had painstakingly built over time. Perhaps those stories were not entirely true, but how could someone dare to say such things here? She tried to maintain her composure and continued moving through the crowd, but those words kept echoing in her head. Secrets about Lucas that she had never heard before. Things she could not immediately understand. At that moment, Olivia felt that she was not only the wife by contract, but a part of a game that she did not fully comprehend. And perhaps the price she would have to pay for joining this world would be far higher than she had imagined. Finally, as the party gradually came to an end, Olivia left that noisy place with Lucas. In the Rolls Royce on the way back to the mansion, The streetlights glided silently past the window. Olivia sat quietly, reflecting on everything she had just experienced. Everything seemed like a giant painting, beautiful but hiding dark patches that she could not reach. She turned to look at Lucas, who still maintained a cold expression, making it impossible to gauge his mood. But there was one thing she was sure of. Her life would never be the same again. She could not return to the simple, comfortable life she once had, and perhaps she would have to pay a very high price to uncover the truth about this man. Olivia stood at the door of Lucas's office, her hand gripping the handle tightly, her heart full of apprehension. She had never imagined that the marriage contract she had signed would lead her into such a dark world. The image of Lucas, the man she had married for financial reasons, always exuded an aura of mystery and strangeness. The perfection he displayed made her feel unreachable, like an impenetrable wall that she could not break through. But tonight was a night of hidden truths, and Olivia decided that she could no longer live in darkness. She had experienced strange signs throughout her time living with Lucas. The midnight phone calls that he always hurriedly ended when she entered the room. The times he told her to stay away from the forbidden areas in the mansion, and the frightening silence whenever she tried to ask about his work. All of these small signs had made Olivia doubt the life she was living. But the night when she decided to break into Lucas's office was a moment that could never be undone. She only wanted to find a little clue, a small trace to answer the questions that had remained unanswered for so long. It was not that she wanted to deceive him, but it was curiosity, a thirst to discover the truth that made her unable to remain indifferent. Olivia entered Lucas's office, where the light from the pale yellow desk lamp shone on the scattered papers, financial documents, and contracts that she had never been allowed to touch. Although she had been in this room many times before, today she sensed something different. A fear was enveloping the space, as if the room knew that she was doing something wrong. She gently approached the desk, where the financial documents were neatly arranged, perhaps related to the work Lucas was engaged in, gigantic transactions that she could never fully understand. But then, one particular document caught her attention. A sheet of paper with her name on it, printed in bold and clearly, made her stop and look more closely. She nervously scanned the numbers and data, but immediately realized that these papers could not possibly be related to her, at least not in the life before she married Lucas. These financial transactions, these offshore accounts, and inexplicably named investments could not be connected to her. Olivia tried to contain the panic within her, but what she had just discovered could not be merely a coincidence. Reaching out, Olivia flipped over another sheet of paper and found additional various pieces of information. Each sheet was related to mysterious transactions, contracts that she had never signed. A cold sensation spread throughout her body. Everything seemed to start swirling, and Olivia felt as if she were lost in a maze with no escape. She had known that Lucas was not a simple man, but she had never thought that he could drag her into something like this. At that moment, she heard footsteps outside the door. She jumped, hastily stuffing all the documents back in their places and trying to close the drawers. She could sense Lucas's gaze if he discovered that she was intruding into his private space. But before she could react, a loud noise rang out from the computer on the desk, signaling that she had inadvertently triggered a security alarm. Olivia felt her heart pounding wildly. She had never felt so threatened. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her hands trembled as she tried to withdraw from the room. She was too hasty, too rushed. And then, from the doorway, a familiar figure appeared. Lucas stood there, looking at her with cold, suspicious eyes. He did not say a word, only stood watching her, as if waiting for an explanation. Olivia tried to regain her composure, but she knew that things would not be that easy. He had discovered her, and now, what would happen next was unpredictable. "What are you doing here?" Lucas asked, his voice full of coldness, yet with a hint as if he had foreseen everything. Olivia swallowed, trying not to let the fear within her show. She looked into Lucas's eyes, wondering if he was hiding a secret greater than what she had discovered. She did not know whether she could trust him or not, but one thing she knew for sure was her life had changed forever from this moment. The rain outside grew heavier, as if intent on submerging everything in the gloomy darkness. In Lucas's office, the only light came from the desk lamp, illuminating the documents and computer screen, creating a cold, mysterious atmosphere. Olivia stood by the window, gazing out with a dreamy look. The rain continued to fall, but not enough to wash away the questions in her mind. A sound of footsteps echoed behind her. Lucas, dressed in his usual dark attire, entered the room. His brown hair was a little tousled, and his sharp eyes stared directly at Olivia, leaving no trace of the tension he felt. He knew she had entered his office, and now it was time to talk. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" Lucas asked, his voice deep, not out of strictness, but as a gentle warning. Olivia turned around, not at all embarrassed. She had found some important documents that she could not stop thinking about. Her name appeared on the pages, alongside strange numbers and mysterious transactions she had never known about. But now, she could not back down. She had decided that if she did not face the truth, she would never be able to live a peaceful life. "Lucas, I can't help but wonder why your documents contain my name. Why is it there in a company like Blackthorn Industries?" Olivia said, her tone both tense and full of suspicion. Lucas stood still, his eyes not leaving Olivia. He sighed softly and then moved closer to her. "Olivia, you don't understand. That's why you need to stop. The deeper you dig, the more you'll find things you can never go back from." Olivia stepped back and glared at him. "It's already so clear. I can't stand on the sidelines anymore. What is happening at Blackthorn Industries? Why are there such secret transactions? I have the right to know," she nearly shouted, tension surging. Lucas remained silent for a moment, as if calculating whether to continue keeping the secrets. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse with worry. "Olivia, Blackthorn is not an ordinary company. It's not just numbers on paper. Everything involves politics, power, and sometimes even life and death. People no longer operate under the rules you think exist." Olivia could not believe what she had just heard. "Life and death?" she asked, her eyes wide. "Why must I be involved in something like this? You tell me all these things and still expect me to remain silent?" Lucas bowed his head and let out a sigh. "This is not the game you think it is. You don't know that what you're uncovering could put you in a very dangerous situation. Very dangerous. Blackthorn can destroy everything, including those closest to them. You will become a target if you keep digging too much." Olivia felt her heart tighten. Although she did not want to admit it, she knew there was something larger, a secret, dangerous force behind it all. But her curiosity and determination to find out only grew stronger. "So, should I give up?" Olivia asked, her tone not very patient but full of self-respect. "Do you think I should just stand by and watch everything happen?" Lucas stepped closer, reducing the distance between them. "Olivia, you must understand that I only want to protect you. If you continue to dig into these secrets, you will not be able to turn back. Blackthorn will not only kill you, but also hurt those you love." Olivia looked at him, her eyes red from fatigue and tension. "Can you tell me what you know? Can you explain everything? I've endured enough. Lucas, I need to know the truth." Lucas said nothing for a moment. He looked into Olivia's determined eyes, then nodded. "All right," he said, his voice lowering. "But you must understand one thing. This is a road from which no one can return once they have taken a step. Blackthorn is not just a financial company. It is a global organization with enormous conspiracies. And those behind it, they have no conscience. They will not hesitate to kill anyone who stands in their way, including you and me." Olivia listened, but in her mind there was only one thought. "I cannot retreat. I am already part of this game. And if that is the price I must pay to know the truth, I will accept it." "Then tell me about Blackthorn Industries." "Lucas, I cannot just sit here and wait." Lucas sighed, then began to recount the secret connections of Blackthorn, the hidden transactions behind a veil of mystery, the relationships with politicians and underground forces, the mysterious disappearances, and the dark deals. He spoke about Damien Blackthorn, the head of the organization, and how he ran everything from the shadows. Olivia listened to every word, sensing an incredible truth gradually being revealed. But she could not stop. She needed to know, not just out of curiosity, but because she was beginning to see what lay behind the mystery of Lucas and Blackthorn. He doesn't want you to get involved in this war, Olivia. You have no choice, Lucas concluded, his voice almost pleading. But Olivia had decided. She turned back, her eyes icy. I've made my choice. Lucas, I will not back down. Her look was like a declaration of war. And in that moment, Lucas realized that she was not just a pawn in his game, but a formidable opponent, a person who could change everything. Olivia Carter is standing at a major turning point in her investigation. She has uncovered the deep secrets of Blackthorn Industries, a large corporation that influences many areas of politics, economics, and media. Yet everything is still not clear enough. Although the signs around Lucas have made her suspicious, Olivia feels the need to obtain more information to better understand Blackthorn's connection with the dark forces in society. She has spent weeks sifting through records, analyzing financial documents, and eavesdropping on information from unofficial sources. But it seems that the people she has approached are all reluctant and hesitant to mention Blackthorn Industries. At that moment, a chance meeting brings Olivia closer to an important clue. That morning, Olivia received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the phone was cold and hard to decipher, but it seemed that the caller knew her well. Ms. Carter, if you want to know the truth about Blackthorn, come and meet me. I can help you, but be careful, because what you are about to learn may change your life forever. The mix of restlessness and curiosity made Olivia unable to refuse. She knew that this was an opportunity to clarify all the obscurities, but also realized that this meeting could be very dangerous. After arranging her work, she decided to go to the location that the caller had previously arranged, a small cafe on a quiet street corner where few people would notice. When Olivia stepped into the cafe, the atmosphere was rather quiet, with only a few customers sitting in separate corners. She looked around, searching for the person she was supposed to meet. A middle-aged man, dressed in an elegant suit, was sitting alone at a table near the window. He looked up as she entered, his eyes full of solemnity. Olivia felt that she could not ignore this man. He was the one who had contacted her.
Hello?
Olivia, the man said, his voice deep and warm yet filled with caution. I am Robert Langford. I used to work in international finance, but now I am merely a man torn between conscience and duty. Olivia sat down, her eyes fixed on Robert. She could not believe that this man could actually provide the information she needed, but she also knew that, in any case, she had to hear what he had to say. I know you are looking into Blackthorn Industries, Robert said, pausing to observe Olivia's reaction. But this is not a simple game. It is a dark world, and not everyone can survive after touching it. I have seen too many people like you, curious people, who have ultimately been swallowed up. Olivia listened without immediately replying. She knew that if she wanted more information, she had to earn Robert's trust. I'm not afraid, she said firmly. I just want to know the truth. Robert looked at her intently for a moment, as if assessing the determination in her eyes. Then he took an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the table. These are the documents you need, he said in a serious tone. They contain information about Blackthorn's shady financial transactions, as well as the important names within the organization. But I must warn you, the people in Blackthorn never forgive anyone who dares to betray them. Olivia opened the envelope and skimmed through the documents inside. The numbers, names, offshore bank accounts. Everything was a clue that she needed, but there was one thing that confused her. Among these documents, there were some names she did not recognize, and it seemed that they were connected with politicians and international organizations. At that moment, Robert stood up and looked out the window, his eyes becoming tense. You must leave here immediately, he said softly. They know you are searching for the truth. I am no longer safe. Before Olivia could react, Robert turned around and quickly left the cafe. She could only watch him go, a vague and fearful feeling overwhelming her mind. Were those documents a trap? Or was this truly an opportunity for her to take another step in her investigation? When Olivia left the cafe, she felt as if she were being followed, although there was no one obvious. The presence of dark cars stopping unusually close made her feel uneasy. Olivia decided not to go home immediately. She knew that she had to do something with these documents, but more importantly, she had to ensure her own safety. As soon as she returned to the hotel, Olivia tried to study the documents that Robert had given her more carefully. But just as she opened a set of documents, her phone rang. It was a call from an unknown number. She did not suspect anything and answered the call. But when she heard a familiar voice on the other end, she could not believe it. "Olivia, you cannot imagine what you have gotten yourself into." Lucas's voice echoed on the phone, making her heart pound. "Leave there immediately. Do not allow yourself to be drawn into these dangerous games anymore." It felt as if a sharp blade had just cut through her heart. Everything began to become too clear, and Olivia realized that she had only just begun to touch a very small part of a world from which she could never return. Olivia Carter stood before the large mirror in the bathroom of the Sterling mansion, the light from the dim bulb illuminating her face. Gentle rays of golden light reflected in her eyes, making them sparkle in a strange way. Yet nothing could hide the evident fatigue and worry. She blinked once more, then looked at herself again, asking, "What am I doing here? Is this the life I want?" She took a deep breath, feeling her own breath lingering in the space. The past months had felt like a nightmare, each day passing like a challenge that made her feel increasingly invaded. This marriage was not a voluntary choice, but a contract, an exchange that she had been forced to accept for reasons she no longer remembered clearly. Lucas Sterling was a mysterious man, full of power and wealth, but also very cold. He was the man whom Olivia had once dreamed of for a perfect life, but now she realized that she was only a pawn in the game he had set up. The secrets he hid, the conspiracies behind his every action, all of these things began to reveal themselves as she decided to investigate. And throughout that process, she came to a terrifying realization. She was only a part of a game over which she had no control. Looking into the mirror, Olivia could not help but feel the change within herself. In the past, she had been a young girl dreaming of the good things in life. But now she was no longer that person. The fear and anxiety no longer overwhelmed her mind. Instead, she felt a simmering anger, a strong urge pushing her to do something, to change something in this life. She turned around and saw her own reflection in the mirror. A slight smile appeared on her lips, but it was not a smile of happiness. It was the determination of someone who had decided to enter the battle. She no longer wanted to be a weak woman watching life pass by without being able to do anything. She wanted to fight, to have control over her own life, and more importantly, to master herself. At that moment, another image appeared in her mind. Lucas, the husband she had married for safety, but now the one she could no longer trust. He always kept his distance, always created impenetrable secrets, and throughout that time, Olivia realized that no one could live in darkness forever. Olivia moved closer to the desk where Lucas's company documents were piled up. She picked up a sheet of paper and looked at the numbers and writings she did not fully understand. But one thing was clear. Lucas's financial transactions were not as simple as they appeared on the surface. She had discovered many suspicious signs, offshore accounts and connections with mysterious organizations. And what made her feel as if someone was playing with her was the fact that her name appeared on these documents that she had never signed. At that moment, a feeling of unease surged within her. She knew that she could not just stand still and remain silent. Olivia felt that if she did nothing, her life would forever be controlled by forces she could not fully comprehend. And she knew that there was no way to escape them if she did not act. She looked at herself in the mirror once more, her eyes no longer filled with hesitation. She asked herself, "Do I have enough courage? Do I have the strength to face this truth?" But then she knew that if she did not confront it, if she did not uncover the truth, she would forever be a part of the game that Lucas and others had created for her. "Olivia Carter, you are not the weak woman they think you are," she told herself. "You are not a pawn on a chessboard, not someone dependent on the shelter of others. I can take control of my own life." She went to the window and looked out. The sight of the luxurious city, the dazzling bright lights, and the towering buildings made her feel small. But at that moment, she felt that she could also rise up, that she could become a part of this world. But only if she had enough courage to face herself and the challenges ahead. She turned back to the desk and reopened the documents she had found. Part of her wanted to stop, to cease investigating, but the rest of her was determined not to back down. "This is my battle," Olivia thought, "and I will not lose." That night, Olivia sat next to Lucas in his office, the dim light from the desk lamp illuminating the thick volumes of documents. They had just finished an important meeting with a group of major financial partners. But in Olivia's heart, a strong sense of anxiety was rising. Although she had learned how to communicate and manage complex financial transactions, she could not shake the feeling that something was not right. Lucas Sterling, the husband she thought she knew well, was no longer the man she had once imagined. He was no longer a cold billionaire with dark secrets that she had to face. Instead, he had become a companion to her, even if only within the confines of a marriage contract. But Olivia could not deny that he possessed a powerful attraction. However, she knew that behind that perfect appearance lay dangers that she could not yet fully comprehend. "We will have to meet a few more partners tomorrow morning," Lucas said, tossing the pen onto the table and leaning back in his chair. "Is there anything else that needs to be done?" He spoke in a deep voice, showing no sign of tension or worry. Olivia looked at him, a vague feeling seeping into her heart. She felt that there was something different in the way he spoke, as if an invisible burden weighed upon his shoulders. But before she could speak, Lucas's phone suddenly rang on the table. The light from the screen made the room suddenly feel cold, reflecting off the glass panels and the shiny metal watch on his wrist. Olivia frowned when she saw the caller's name, Damien Blackthorne. That name was no longer unfamiliar to her. Damien was the man she had met on a trip to the private airport, the one who had warned her that once she stepped into this world, there would be no turning back. "Not now," Lucas said softly, but in his voice there was a firmness that Olivia had never heard before. "Didn't you answer the phone?" Olivia asked, a feeling of confusion rising within her. "No," Lucas replied briefly. "I don't want these calls to affect my work." Olivia turned back to her computer screen, trying to maintain her focus, but an unsettling feeling lingered in her mind. The strange sounds from the unfinished call seemed to echo in the depths of her thoughts. Suddenly, Lucas's phone rang again, this time with a text message. Lucas held his breath, slowly opened the screen, and Olivia could only see a short text. "If you don't stop, everything will not stop at this number." Those words were like a knife stabbing straight into Olivia's heart. She realized that this was no longer a simple threat. This was a serious warning from an organization with which they were all too familiar for its ruthlessness and power. Olivia jumped. She turned to look at Lucas, but she saw no sign of panic or fear on his face. He only stared intently at his phone screen, his eyes cold, yet there was something in them that Olivia had never seen before. A vague worry, something very human. "You already know about this, don't you?" Olivia asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Lucas did not answer immediately. Instead, he stood up, his hand clenching the phone tightly. "Olivia," he turned to look at her. "Don't think too much about it." But Olivia could not stop thinking. She knew that behind those words was something more serious that Lucas did not want her to know. She stood up, walked over to him, and looked straight into his eyes, the questions in her mind bursting forth. "How serious is this really, Lucas? I cannot stay silent any longer. Who are we facing?" A thin smile appeared on Lucas's lips, but it was not a smile of comfort. "We are facing a power that you cannot yet understand, and you should not delve any further." Olivia felt as if her heart were being squeezed. She was used to the tricks and strategies in this world of power, but this time she could not understand the fear in Lucas's eyes. She had once thought that Lucas was unbeatable, that he was the one in control in every situation. But now, when faced with this threat, she realized that Lucas too had his own vulnerabilities. "I want to know the truth," Olivia said, her voice firm. "I want to know who is trying to push us into this corner." Lucas looked at her for a while, as if searching for the answer in her eyes. After a long moment of silence, he sighed, then stepped closer to the window and looked out. "You don't understand, Olivia. Organizations like Blackthorne do not forgive weakness." Olivia moved closer to him, refusing to back down. "Do you think I'm weak?" she asked, her eyes strong and resolute. Lucas turned back, looking at her with a deep gaze that she had never seen before. "You are not weak, Olivia," he replied, his voice gentler, but still full of worry. "But you are not a part of this world, and if you continue to meddle in things you do not understand, you will make everything even more dangerous." Olivia said nothing, simply standing there, silently looking at him. She knew that her life had changed forever since she entered this world, but more importantly, she understood that no matter what force might try to bring them down, she would not allow herself to be diminished. She would stand with Lucas, not as a pawn in a game of power, but as a true partner. "I will not give up," Olivia said, her voice strong. "I will not back down. We will face them, Lucas, and I will fight alongside you." Lucas looked at her for a long time, his eyes filled with pride and worry. "Then, prepare yourself. This battle will not be easy." Olivia sat in her private office, the dim light from her computer screen casting on her determined face. She scrolled through each document, each financial record that she had collected over the past few weeks. Recent events had made her realize that something bigger, something more dangerous was threatening Sterling Global. But not only that, she knew that there was a traitor working right within the company, a person they trusted, a person who had planted traps and taken every opportunity to overthrow them from within. In this tense atmosphere, Olivia had crossed the boundary between doubt and truth. She looked at the lines of data on her computer screen, numbers that seemed to dance in her head when suddenly a line of text appeared before her eyes, making her heart beat fast. It was an email leaked from a high-security account within Sterling Global. It was an exchange between key members of the company that she had never been aware of. And above all, a name she could never have expected, was mentioned. It was someone she had once trusted, someone who had worked beside her for many years. Her heart tightened. This was not a coincidence. This was betrayal. Olivia took a deep breath, trying to steady her breathing. She knew that everything had changed now. This was no longer just a battle to protect her position in this world of power, but a life or death struggle to safeguard everything she had built with Lucas. But before taking action, she needed more evidence. She needed to confront Lucas, and most importantly, she needed to have a real position in this battle. She could not just be a bystander, not just a worthless piece on a board of power. Olivia stood up, a surge of tension rising within her body. She could not let herself be controlled by her emotions. She had to stay calm, but she also had to act quickly. She closed her laptop and hurriedly left her office. The corridor of Sterling Global was enveloped in a terrifying silence, but that was exactly when she felt the light of truth gradually shining through. She could not hesitate any longer. When she reached Lucas's office door, she took a long breath and knocked lightly. Lucas opened the door, his face as usual, cold and full of power. But Olivia could sense the tension in his eyes. He was preparing for an important meeting, but when he saw her, he motioned for her to come in. "Olivia, is something wrong?" Lucas asked, his voice not showing surprise, but Olivia knew that in moments like these, he always saw through the worry in her eyes. Olivia stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She felt unease in the air, but there was no time to dwell on it. She needed to make a decision immediately. This time, she could not let the silence linger. She handed Lucas a file of documents without saying a word. Lucas took the file and opened it. His eyes quickly grew tense as he saw the evidence that Olivia had uncovered. "This," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Where did you find this?" Olivia did not answer immediately. She stood still, feeling each passing second seep into her body. "The name in it. Could it be the person I thought it was?" Lucas did not answer right away, but he did not need to speak. She already knew the answer. "Do you have any plans?" he asked, his voice somewhat firm, yet not hiding his worry. Olivia looked him straight in the eye, without backing down. "I don't want to be just a pawn in your chess game. Lucas, I am no longer someone who stands outside this game. I need a real position in this battle, and I will not wait until everything collapses. I will help you, but I want to be respected as a true partner." Lucas stared at her, his eyes like an approaching storm, full of danger and determination. After a long moment, he nodded and gently placed the file on the desk. "All right, if you want to join this battle, you will have your place. But I warn you, Olivia, this is not a simple game. It may change everything you know." Olivia smiled, but her smile no longer held worry. It was one of solid confidence. "I'm ready." The story of this betrayal was not only a challenge for Olivia, but also a significant turning point in her life. She was no longer the weak woman who needed protection. She had risen up, not only to protect herself, but also to truly take control of this world, to fight in the game of power in which she had now become an indispensable part. Olivia was no longer just a pawn in Lucas's game. She was a true player, and she would not let anyone, not even Lucas, take away the position she had earned. Olivia stood straight, the neon light from outside the window shining on her face, highlighting the determination in her eyes. She had not felt this coldness within herself for a long time, the coldness of a person who no longer fears. From being a pawn on a chessboard, now she was a true player. She was no longer the girl entangled in a contract marriage with Lucas, no longer the woman who had to seek safety. She had become part of a world she had never imagined she would enter. And now, she had to prove that she would no longer just stand by and watch. The room facing Damien Blackthorne was spacious, adorned with classic paintings on the walls and soft golden light shining on the exquisite furnishings. This room was where the greatest decisions of Sterling Global and Blackthorne Industries were made. Damien sat facing her, his face cold, his blue eyes sharp as knives. He was the man she had to confront, the man she knew had been behind many conspiracies, the man who had once wanted her to be nothing more than a pawn in his game. "Olivia, do you really think you can control this game?" Damien said in a cold voice, though Olivia could detect a note of hesitation in his eyes. He was no longer as confident as before. She smiled, a smile that was not pleasant. "Damien, I don't think so. I know." Her answer made Damien's heart skip a beat. Olivia didn't need to say much, didn't need to flaunt power. She knew that in this world, silence was sometimes the strongest declaration of war. Damien pushed his chair aside, stood up, and walked around the room. "Do you think you can stand equal to me and Lucas? What are you but a pawn in this game?" Olivia looked at him without moving, without turning away. She knew she had to do something to retain the initiative. "I am not your pawn, nor am I Lucas's pawn. I am the only one who decides who I will become in this game, and I will not let you or anyone else determine my worth." She moved closer to Damien's desk, where important documents were neatly arranged. She ran her hand over the pages, not to read them, but to display her confidence, as if everything in this room belonged to her, at least in that moment. Damien stood still, but his eyes began to show discomfort. He could not help but recognize Olivia's strength, a strength that did not come from power or wealth, but from her confidence and determination. "Playing this power game is not easy, Olivia," Damien said, his voice like a cutting knife, yet with something feeble in it. "I have controlled it for so many years. You do not have the ability to do it like I do." Olivia lifted her head, her eyes full of determination. "You only know how to control everything around you." "Damien, but I know how to control myself, and that is something you cannot understand. I do not need to play the way you expect." "So what do you want?" Damien asked, his eyes as if challenging her. Olivia did not answer immediately. She looked into his eyes, then turned to gaze out the window, where the city below shone brilliantly. "I want control. I want not just to be an observer in this game. I want to participate in the final decision." Damien snorted, but his laugh did not sound comfortable. "What do you think you will do when you are in the middle of this battle? You are not strong enough to face me. You are just a contract wife, a part of the game that Lucas created." Olivia turned around, her eyes burning like fire. "I am not Lucas's wife anymore. I am his partner, and I will not allow anyone, whether you or anyone else, to underestimate me." She moved closer to Damien, advancing as if to confront him directly. "You think you have controlled everything, but there is one thing you have forgotten. This game does not have only one player. There are many, and I will not be the last one to lose." Damien stood motionless, unable to react immediately. She had made him reconsider. Olivia was not a weak person. She was not someone who would easily be pushed into the darkness of power. She had learned how to fight in this world, how not to be manipulated, and now she was no longer just watching. She had officially joined the battle. "I don't need to do what you demand," Olivia said, her voice unwavering. "And I don't need your permission to enter this battle. I will fight with my own strength." She stepped back a pace, her eyes still fixed on Damien. "Remember this, Damien. I am not just a contract wife. I am a force you cannot overlook." Damien said nothing. He stood still for a long while. Then finally, he uttered, his voice no longer as certain as before, "You have made me cautious. But don't think that you have won. Olivia smiled. I don't need to win this game. Damien, I only need to have control. She turned and stepped out of the room, the light from the window shining on her back, highlighting a powerful image. She had proven that she was no longer just a pawn, no longer a weak person in the game of power. She had stepped into this world, and now she was a true player. Olivia stood on the top floor of the Sterling Global building, her eyes fixed on the sparkling lights far below on the street. This city, bustling, full of desire and mystery, was like a gigantic machine, where every small decision could change fate. Night had fallen, yet life still overflowed everywhere. The streams of vehicles, the neon lights reflecting off the glass of the towering buildings, all forming a vibrant picture at her feet. This was a world of power, but not everyone could step into it. She stood there alone, yet not lonely. Lucas stood by her side, not as a mere protector, but as a true partner, a companion who had stood by her through this tumultuous journey. Every step they had taken had been paid for with countless challenges, mental shocks, and many moments of feeling trapped. But now, as she looked into Lucas's eyes, Olivia realized that she was no longer a frightened woman, no longer a pawn on the chessboard of power that he had set from the beginning. She was a part of it, and it was she who would decide where this game would go. Lucas remained silent, his eyes tracking the scene before him. But the cold light from the street lamps could not hide the complexity in his soul. Had he ever thought that Olivia would be standing here with him? Not as a contract wife, but as a strategist, a person capable of changing everything he once trusted? He sensed the strength of change in Olivia. Everything around them was changing, but perhaps the most significant change was in themselves. Olivia did not turn to look at him, yet she felt Lucas's presence. Over the past months, she had learned to read the signs in his eyes, in every gesture, in every moment of silence. Perhaps it was that silence that was the truest language of all. They needed not say another word. What had transpired between them, the secrets that had been unveiled, the challenges they had overcome, all had led to this moment. And now, she was ready. An extraordinary sense of freedom filled Olivia. She took a deep breath, letting the fresh night air fill her lungs. Every gentle breeze caressed her face, as if reminding her of the strength she had found within herself. There were no more fears, no more moments of doubt. All she could feel now was power and confidence. Lucas, Olivia began, her voice calm yet full of determination. You once thought that my life would forever be controlled by what you set up, but now I understand that I can control everything. Lucas did not answer immediately. He just stood there, in the dim light of the night, listening to every word of Olivia's declaration. There was a hint of surprise, a touch of pride in his eyes, but not a trace of worry. He had realized that this was no longer a weak Olivia, no longer a frightened woman. She was standing on the brink of a great decision, and he could not predict what she would do. But one thing he knew for sure: Olivia would not allow anyone, whether him or anyone else, to stop her. You thought I would only be a part of this game, Olivia continued, but I have changed. I will not only survive in this world, I will dominate it. Lucas stared at Olivia, his eyes filled with a mix of surprise and curiosity. He knew that her words were not merely simple phrases, but a declaration of war against the world. Olivia was no longer the woman who lived in fear, no longer dependent on his protection. She was becoming a force, and he realized that her strength would be what lifted him up alongside her. Olivia, you have chosen this path, Lucas said in a soft, measured tone, and you have won. But remember, this battle never ends. Power comes with loneliness, and authority with enemies. Are you ready? Olivia did not answer immediately. She smiled, a confident, mysterious smile that shone in the faint light of the night, affirming her resolve. She was ready, no longer just a contract wife, no longer merely a pawn in this power game. She would be a true player, the one who decides the outcome. I have been ready for a long time, Lucas, Olivia replied firmly. This is not the end, but the beginning. We will build a new empire, an empire in which I am not just a part, I will be the one who controls it. Lucas looked at Olivia once more, and then, for the first time since their journey began, he felt a sense of kinship, a bond between them. He had seen her transform from a helpless woman into an ally, and now he saw a true partner, a partner not only in this game, but in life. Olivia looked down at the city, where the lights and endless streets resembled an ocean of opportunities. She knew that now, everything was in her hands. No one could stop her. No one could control her. She was the decision maker. She was the one holding fate. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The gentle breeze carried the scent of freedom, of power. Olivia closed her eyes, feeling every heartbeat, every breath, every surge of strength filling her body. She had become a part of this world, but not in the way Lucas had intended. She would write her own story, not as a dependent, but as the one at the helm. We will not just survive, Lucas, Olivia finally said. We will conquer it. And with that affirmation, Olivia's story turned a new page. A page of power, of battles yet to come, but not as a victim. She was no longer passive in this game, but active, the one who sets the rules. The city lights below were not just points of light emanating from the ground. They were symbols of endless opportunities that Olivia would never let pass her by.
The content of this story has been edited by our editorial team, based on a true story. The names of the characters have been changed to protect their privacy and identity.